There are two types of people in this world. Those who think Ashley is annoying and belongs in the trash, and those who don't have paint for fun.
Get away!
Calm down. Everything's going to be just fine. My name's Leon. I'm under the President's order to rescue you.
Ashley. Many hate her, many more just tolerate her. And then there's me, here to defend her honor and smite those who speak ill will of her name with well-constructed arguments and reasoning. Also fire.
Great blazing walls of fire!
But let's not focus on your eternal damnation now, shall we? We can get to that later. We are here to talk about Ashley Graham, the President's daughter. Defenses of Ashley, though not common, are not new, but I wanted to throw my hat in the ring because if there's one game that can get me to stick to a consistent upload schedule of any kind, it's Resident Evil 4. If you haven't checked out my past Resident Evil 4 videos, I recommend them for completely unbiased and not self-serving reasons at all. In past videos, I talked about my hopes for the remake and what directions I think it should and shouldn't take, so this time, I decided to just talk about an aspect of the original game I love, because sitting here and trying to speculate on a game we still have not seen much of, and trying to comment on what I think it should and shouldn't do when the game is less than a year away, and even if I was some big enough channel being worth listening to, there's not much they can do in this stage of development about it. All that is exhausting and boring, and I'd rather just celebrate the game I love than bitch about one I can't even play right now. Which brings me to the premise of this video. Ashley is a great escort. Wait, hold on, let me rephrase that. She is a great escort mission. The best I have encountered in a game, and honestly, it took me years to truly appreciate her implementation and effect on the gameplay. And now, I love the fact that she tags along while I slaughter an entire crazy European cult. But before you can understand why I appreciate her so much, I need to bitch about what I hate about escort missions. And for the sake of this video, I'm gonna break escort missions up into two categories, at least the two main categories I've encountered, which are the babysitting variety and the name-only variety. Let's start with the former. What is a babysitting escort mission, and why does it suck more than I do? Well, first, it's usually because these type of escort missions usually slow down the pacing of a game in a very bad way, by forcing you to watch over some NPC that you either follow while they move at a snail's pace, or they follow you at a snail's pace. Sorry, snails, I didn't mean to offend you. For obvious reasons, this is dreadful, because no one wants to play babysitter to an NPC that has no respect for the player's time. Some of the worst examples of this are protecting the little sisters in that segment in BioShock, and just about any survivor you save in the Dead Rising games. But, I mean, there's plenty examples of this in gaming out there, you don't really have to look far. The other problem I have with these type of escort missions is that it usually encourages the use of cheap and spammy tactics just to get through them, which is not a fun way to play most games. It's the lack of respect for the player's time, and the fact that these segments don't usually encourage a greater understanding of the game's mechanics, but again, just finding the most powerful, easy to spam thing you can, and just doing that. And then there's the name-only escort missions, which people could argue aren't even really escort missions, but I'm bringing these up for a reason. Trust me, there's a point to all of this. I think. These kind of escort missions can be found most dominantly in BioShock Infinite and Last of Us. Now, I'll say right off the bat that these kind of escort missions aren't really a problem and not nearly as bad as the former, okay? I'd much rather this than that. But, I mean, the only reason these are better is because their solution to the escort mission is just throwing the baby out with the bathwater. You know, it just makes the character you are escorting mostly a non-factor. And honestly, it kind of presents its own problems, like ally NPCs that completely break immersion, but I'll admit, that's just more funny than anything else. For me, it's really the lack of presence of these characters that you're supposed to look after that really hurts the style for me. You might have to rescue them from an attack every now and then, but barely, it's a rare occasion. It's like they aren't really there until they are, and they start blocking a door, or again, you have to like stop what you're doing just to save them. Again, I'll be the first to admit that I'm essentially just nitpicking here, but this nitpicking is important to why I appreciate Ashley so much. Now, why do I like Ashley? Well, it's simple. She avoids the problems of both. Mostly. For example, she sticks to you like glue. No sitting there waiting for her to catch up or accommodating her. No. Ashley understands one simple truth. That being that you're the professional, you're the one with the guns, so she should probably, possibly, maybe, sorta, kinda listen to everything you say. Furthermore, she is responsive to you. Aim your gun and she hugs your back and uses you for cover. Point your gun at her and she will duck so you can shoot enemies behind her. Need her to stay behind? You can tell her to wait with the press of a button. Need her to hide in a needle-infested trash bin? She doesn't even ask questions, she just hops right in as if it were her home. Look, Ashley, I get it. Student loan debt can be brutal, but you're the president's daughter. Surely you can afford to pay it off. Either way, Ashley is good and pure and avoids completely destroying the pacing of the segment she is in like the babysitting escort missions do. What's great though is that she does it without being a non-factor like the name-only escort missions. Ashley can die or be kidnapped, either of which leads to a game over, meaning that you do have to take her into account when engaging in combat. But you see, that is what's so great. Ashley being both able to keep pace with the player, but also being someone you have to protect, means that she does have an effect on the gameplay and how you go about the levels when she is around. But unlike babysitting missions where you are damn near forced to change how you play the game to accommodate the NPC you are escorting, she encourages caution while giving you the freedom to play how you want. If you know what you're doing and how to play, you can still play at a regular pace with Ashley around, meaning a lot less spamming and a lot more legitimate gameplay. In fact, that's why I love her. Her presence, as it exists, encourages further mastery of the combat mechanics and how to best utilize them, instead of putting you into scenarios where you're compelled to use cheap tactics and spam moves, or in this game's case, it'd be just to expel your most powerful ammo, just to get through it. Now, that's not to say Ashley can't get in the way. You do have to catch her from like every jump, and that can be a bit inconvenient. Otherwise, you usually have to be playing pretty poorly for her to get separated from you. And if it's to a point where she's constantly getting hung up on enemies or separated from you, you probably just have to rethink how you approach things. Or as most people on the internet put it, get good. Keeping her safe is just another reason to get good at combat, which is the best part of the game. And honestly, that's why I like her. She reinforces mastery of the main gameplay loop instead of getting in the way of it like the babysitting missions do. And though I'm totally fine with the name-only escort missions, she has a meaningful effect on gameplay that is lacking from games that make those other characters non-factors, like The Last of Us, like BioShock Infinite, which is why I brought up that style of escort mission to begin with. See, I told you it all had a point, and that I wasn't stretching anything. I'm sure if this whole logic is a stretch, you're gonna tell me anyways in the comments, so yeah, it's probably still a stretch, isn't it? Now, before I end off this video, I wanted to talk about the small handful of flaws I think she does have, and how they, and her in general, could be improved. This next bit is more based on improving Ashley in the context of the OG gameplay and not the remake. I mean, the gameplay of the remake could be, and possibly will be, very different, and who knows how Ashley will work within it. The gameplay structure of the remake may be such that everything I suggest here would be an awful idea. I already mentioned having to catch her from any jump, which is the only part of her where I feel she becomes a bit of a burden, but she also does fall behind a little when having to make jumps. She can also get stuck on enemies sometimes, and that's just not very cash money of her. This doesn't happen often. Again, you gotta be playing pretty poorly for stuff like this to be a regular occurrence. But if she gets surrounded, she just ducks and refuses to move, and these moments can be pretty frustrating because it can be hard to get her out of this like stun lock. You kind of just gotta clear the enemies out around her to the best of your abilities and try to get her out of there. Now, I do suspect that a remake will have much better path-finding AI for her to allow her to run out of these scenarios herself. But alternatively, something I think could be a cool addition to her is giving her defense items that allow her to break free from enemies herself. The way I see it working is pretty simple. You have defense items like in Resident Evil 1 and 2 remakes, an infinite resource that can be used to break out of grabs. The difference here being that instead of it just being something the player can use, it could also be something they could equip on Ashley in order to give her a bit more protection. I think this creates a pretty interesting choice. Keep the defense item on Leon for when you get grabbed and need to use it at the expense of Ashley getting grabbed and you having to save her yourself, or letting her hold onto a defense item so that you have a little bit more peace of mind during combat encounters. Beyond that, something else I think could make Ashley more interesting as a mechanic is to let her act as extra inventory space. Maybe she has an inventory half the size of Leon's, but regardless of the size, the way it would work is that you can let her hold on to extra gear you might not have room or immediate use for, with the caveat being that anytime she is too far away or separated from you as part of the campaign, you lose access to that gear. Now, this might not sound fun to everyone, but to me, I think it's an interesting idea. On a first time playthrough, this can lead to spontaneous moments where you leave something, let's say in this case, you let her hold on to all or most of your sniper ammo because you have no immediate use for it, but then she gets separated from you, and you get thrown into these sections where the sniper might be your best option, but now you are forced to improvise because most of your sniper ammo is with her. Which to me is part of the core of good Resident Evil games, making you weigh your options based off of what you might encounter with no real knowledge of what and when that will be. But also, on repeat playthroughs, it can be something used to the player's advantage as they use prior knowledge of the game's levels to plan out what they want Ashley to hold and when they want her to hold on to it. The best Resident Evil games are always making the player think, even on repeat playthroughs, how to best manage their equipment and make constant little but significant decisions on what to carry and how to best move about the game world. I think this could present a fun dynamic, but I also get if people look at this idea with skepticism. Anyways, that's all I wanted to say this month. What did you think of what I said? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Do you think there are better examples of escort missions in gaming? Let me know in the comments section below. If you enjoyed this video, consider subscribing and liking this video. You know, all the good stuff that helps a channel like this grow. Check out some of my other work if you want to as well. I got reviews, thought pieces on upcoming games, and memes. Glorious, half-baked memes that are probably not nearly as funny as I think they are. Anyways, I'm gonna go play in traffic now. See you all later. Please, no middle grounds. Well, you might be sitting there and wondering, what do you even mean by that? Well, for starters, let me tell you what I don't mean. I don't mean not having a mix of action and horror.